Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, because I'm sure there will be a wide variety of comments and opinions on this one because the subject is Brock Purdy's contract. And obviously, when a player is drafted into the NFL, he signs a 4-year contract, and that contract cannot be touched at all. That's a CBA rule, cannot be touched until after his third season. This year, obviously, Brock Purdy is now eligible for a new contract and would fully expect a new contract to get done this offseason. That was the stated intention of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. I think everybody with the 49ers realizes that they can't force Brock Purdy to play on the final year of his contract, because that would send a horrible signal to the team, to every player around the league, the locker room. You know, guys were talking about excited for Brock Purdy, the contract that he's going to sign. Also, when you think about just how last offseason went with the contract situations with Trent Williams, with Brandon Ayuk, and this was your quarterback. So I think it's imperative that the 49ers sign him to a contract extension early in the offseason. Will that get done? I don't know. It's probably easier said than done because clearly where the 49ers are with the salary cap, they're not going to want to pay Brock Purdy as much as Brock Purdy's side will want him to get paid. And where that number falls, it remains to be seen. I was on KNBR earlier this week, and it was brought to my attention Dan Graziano, or at least it was asked to me, that Dan Graziano of ESPN projected Brock Purdy signing a deal that would pay him roughly $49 million per season, average per year. And I was asked to comment on that, and I said that that sounded low to me because of what the contracts have been signed by other quarterbacks around the league in previous years. And of course, we know every year salaries go up because the salary cap goes up. And when you think about the last batch of quarterbacks that have signed and where that money is now, where that kind of that line is, Dak Prescott at 60 million a year, he leads the way. Then you have 55 million for Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, and that was signed 2 years ago, and Jordan Love, 55 million for them. And then somewhere in that 51 to 53 range, you have Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. I better post this before the Super Bowl, but the one thing that Prescott, Lawrence, Burrow, Love, Tagovailoa, Goff, Herbert, Jackson, and Hurts, one thing they all have in common is that none of them have won a Super Bowl. And obviously, Brock Purdy hasn't won a Super Bowl either. And so, where does that put him? Where does that put the 49ers? My personal opinion is that it should be somewhere in that $60 million range. It should be somewhere right there with Dak Prescott based on the comp. It's like the real estate market. If the house next to you sells for this and it's a comparable house, that's what your house should sell for. So Dak Prescott, $60 million kind of sets the level where you would expect the 49ers and Brock Purdy to find some middle ground. Now, could it be a little bit more than that? Could it be a little bit less than that? Yeah, of course. Where that number is, I don't know. First thing you have to look at is who has the leverage in this deal. And it's really difficult to figure out who does have the leverage in this deal, because right now, when you think about going into next season, Brock Purdy would be way underpaid, just like he was his first 3 years in the NFL. So it's the one part is he's not leaving a whole lot of money on the table, relatively speaking, of course. A whole lot of money for me, maybe for you too, but for an NFL starting quarterback, he's not scheduled to make much money at all. For the 49ers, when you look at their roster, a veteran roster, their best chance of winning in 2025 and in future seasons is to have Brock Purdy on the field. It's to have him on the field. It's to have him on the field in the offseason program, taking part in every phase of the offseason program. And also, we saw how just weirdness with the team kind of set the franchise back last season. And so the 49ers just need to get this thing settled. But again, much easier said than done. Now, for Brock Purdy, anybody saying he's not worth it, I would argue with that because if you look at, and there's a lot of ways to measure a quarterback. In the draft, a lot of teams look at arm strength, size, and all that to put together where a guy should be drafted. But I think once you're in the league, you have to let the performance speak for itself. And for Brock Purdy, you're talking about a guy that finished fourth in the MVP voting in 2023, an offense that did not have a lot of their better players in 2024. And what did Brock Purdy do? It was this down season for him. His passer rating, 96.1. That was a down season with the supporting cast not where it should be. That still would rank 19th or 17th all time in career passer rating if his whole career was that 96.1. Jennifer Lee Chan talked to Peyton Manning about the Brock Purdy situation. Check out the 49ers Talk podcast, which I taped earlier with Jennifer. But Peyton Manning, he ranks just one spot ahead of that 96.1 at 96.5. I'm just using last season as the supposed floor for what Brock Purdy can do. He's still a young guy. He probably won't hit his peak if he's like a lot of other quarterbacks in the NFL, won't hit their peak until 28, 29, 30 years old. But right now, Brock Purdy's career passer rating, and again, the 113 passer rating of 2023 pushes that thing way up there. But his career passer rating right now, with not enough games to qualify and to really be seriously talked about, but it's 104.9. And that's better than any quarterback in NFL history, better than Aaron Rodgers, better than Patrick Mahomes, better than Lamar Jackson. Okay, so passer rating is one thing. However, you want to use that as a tool for determining how good a quarterback is. The other thing is QBR, which has been in place now for several years. And Brock Purdy ranked seventh in the NFL last year in QBR. And I think a lot of that had to do with him adding the running element to his game. So seventh in the NFL in QBR. The top six were Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, a rookie, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Jared Goff. So all those guys except for Jaden Daniels, who was the number 2 pick in the draft, by the way, all those guys have contracts up there except for Josh Allen. Josh Allen will be the next guy to sign a huge contract. Now, Purdy will sign, I would assume, a big contract. Where it's going to be, I don't know. I've told you somewhere around 60, a little bit less, a little bit more, whatever that buffer is. I don't think it's going to be much more than 60 if it gets that high. I don't think it'll be much less than 60 though. And Brock Purdy's passer rate QBR rating, which I think is a redundancy, quarterback rating. So his QBR ranked last season ahead of Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Herbert. So my point is, I don't know what my point is. My point is that I don't know that the 49ers and Purdy's side have started talking contract yet. Typically, they wait longer into the offseason. What the timing of this will be, I don't know. The 49ers certainly expressed some desire to get this thing done earlier than usual. A lot of these contracts that they've done, and they've done, seems like a big one every year since for a while now. George Kittle, Fred Warner, Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, Brandon Ayuk. And now the next one, as far as a second contract, is Brock Purdy. A lot of those contracts that I mentioned got done either right before the start of training camp or into training camp. I just don't know if they can afford to do that with Purdy because of the position he plays, because of what that would do just for the organization as a whole. So, the leverage is whatever Purdy signs, if he signs the 49ers lowest lowball offer, it'll still be a heck of a lot more than what he's currently scheduled to make. So there's that leverage. On the other side is the 49ers have to be careful because they are in a world of hurt if they don't have Brock Purdy. He's proven it. Kyle Shanahan has said he wants Purdy to be his starting quarterback for as long as he's the head coach of the 49ers. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing plays out because it's it's a time right now where, according to Kyle Shanahan, he has his quarterback. That's the guy he likes. There are very few flaws with uh, with Brock Purdy in relation to flaws that other quarterbacks have. So 49ers have won games with him. They've won playoff games with him, 4 playoff wins, both as a rookie and his second year. This year things didn't go well, but there's still a lot of room for improvement for Purdy, which is obviously a good thing for the 49ers because he really hasn't had, the off seasons have been kind of stunted a little bit. After his rookie season, he couldn't throw because of the elbow injury. This is an opportunity where he faced probably more adversity this season than he did in any other season in which he's been the quarterback, which obviously hasn't been many. And Kyle Shanahan really talked about the excitement to be able to look at every snap he took during the 2024 season, and finding ways to improve, finding ways to get better. Um, and the 49ers also getting healthier with a supporting cast around him, doing things with the personnel department to make an offensive line that's better. The offensive line is average. It's okay, but it could be a lot better, no doubt about it. So that's my take on Brock Purdy. I don't know that anything's going to get done soon, but as the start of the free agent period begins in mid-March, entering into the offseason program, and then the draft, I would think that that would be the sweet spot right around there where the 49ers would like to get something done. I'd think back to the 2018 early months of 2018, 49ers signed Jimmy Garoppolo to his contract extension in February of that year, I think late February, and they got that thing done. They made him the highest paid quarterback in the league for a short period of time. And that's got to be the opening line for Brock Purdy's agent is you made Jimmy Garoppolo the highest paid quarterback in the league after seeing him for just 5 games. You need to do the same thing for Brock Purdy. Will that happen? I don't know. I don't know where it's going. You would think that the sides, both working in the same direction, want to get something done. I don't see there being any games like there were last year with Brandon Ayuk where he's asking for a trade and the 49ers are dangling Brock Purdy in a trade. Brock Purdy means a lot more. He has more value to the 49ers than he would to any other team. And I think that value is pretty high. So those are my thoughts on Brock Purdy, where the contract is, where it potentially could be going. But I see him being right there among the highest paid quarterbacks in the league because guess what? The next day, the next year, 2 years down the road, his contract will go lower and lower and lower. That's just the way it works in the NFL. And I think that, any thought of Brock Purdy saying, I'm going to take a hometown discount, I don't know that that's necessarily fair either because he's been on a hometown discount for 3 seasons. He's been vastly underpaid, and it's time for his salary to come up to match that performance, which, let's face it, his performance has been, the numbers suggested, his performance has been as good than any quarterback in the league, better than most. So we'll see where it goes from here. Those are my quick thoughts on the Brock Purdy situation. If you get a chance, check out the 49ers Talk podcast. We talk more about that, talk more about other things surrounding the team, including Myles Garrett, what the possibility would be for him. One thing that I would say is that any team that acquires Myles Garrett would have to be willing to pay a big price. Yes, theoretically they'd be inheriting his contract, but I would think that Myles Garrett would want his current contract torn up and not just have a 2-year deal with his new team. I think that he would expect the team that acquires him to then ante up and make him, one of the highest, if not the highest paid defensive player in the league with an extension. So, all right. Thanks for watching. And that is it for now.